How's it going, everyone? My name is True Wonder Dog, and today I wanted to address some concerns within the Mortal Kombat community. We've seen a lot of Mortal Kombat 11 footage lately, and people have been left a bit worried. And keep in mind, I do truly wish the best for this game. I'm not making this video to rip on Mortal Kombat 11, quite the opposite. I want to see this game succeed just as much as every other fan out there. And I think bringing these concerns out into the open would go a long ways towards helping that. For me personally, I really enjoyed the time I got to play the game. Big thanks to WB for letting me do that, flying me out there, let me have hands on. It was a ton of fun. But even with all the fun I was having, even I did notice these concerns as well. So without any further ado, let's address the main concerns that I've been hearing about Mortal Kombat 11. So first up, we have the movement. The running is gone, and dashing has a long recovery and doesn't travel very far. Now, to compensate for this, many attacks have more range than in past Mortal Kombat games, at least Mortal Kombat X. Attacks are not as stubby, they have much better range, so you can reach the opponent a bit better. Now the issue is these moves have some pretty long recovery, so if you do whiff the attack, like say the opponent jumps straight up, you can whiff the attack underneath them, they'll fall on top of you and get a full combo. So even though the attacks do have pretty good range, they also have long recovery, so it's a bit risky. And that part isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just how the footsies work at the moment, and it could end up being a good thing over time. However, most people are concerned with the dashing. Because in MK9 there wasn't a run either, but you could dash very quickly, dash covered a lot of distance, and you could block cancel it right away. So you could dash to gain some distance and then block almost immediately. And in Mortal Kombat 11 you can't actually do that. If you dash forward, you can't block immediately. You can still block before the full animation plays out, but it's pretty long, so the opponent has time to actually react to your dash and hit you, and that wouldn't be a huge concern if you're right in their face. But I think most people take issue with the projectiles, right? You're trying to dash forward while blocking projectiles and you can't. You dash and you just eat the projectile in your face. Not to mention the dash itself doesn't cover very much distance. So not only is it slower and recovers slower and can't be block cancelled, but you're just not getting very much distance. Now thankfully the walk speed is fairly good, but that just means most players are walking forward and backwards instead of dashing. And I feel like that's okay if you're in that footsie distance where you're trying to whiff normals and whiff punish the opponent. However, I don't think it's a good look when you're full screen trying to get in and you're just not dashing at all. You're just walking forward and blocking. I don't think that's how the game should be played, so hopefully in the future the forward dash is a bit faster or just covers more distance in general. Hopefully an even blend of both. And the next big concern people are talking about is no armored attacks. So special moves no longer have armor in Mortal Kombat 11, even if you do spin the bar to enhance them. Instead, you have armored wake-up attack options that do cost 1 bar of your defense and offense. And some of these are safe, but don't lead to a combo, whereas the other one can lead to a full combo, but it's risky and punishable on block. However, players can't use this option while blocking. They have to be knocked down, and I think that's the big issue. When you're in the corner and just being pressured over and over again, you don't really have an option to escape the opponent's pressure. Now I'm thinking that perhaps the flawless guard was meant to serve this purpose, but it's very hard to do, and it also costs 1 bar of offense and defense. So even though I do think flawless guard was meant to be your way of escaping pressure, especially in the corner, it's just really hard to pull off at the moment, and countering the opponent does still cost you meter. So even if you do time that block perfectly within 3 frames of the attack coming in, you still might not have the meter to actually escape, so it makes it feel kind of pointless. Plus, even if you do have the reflexes of a god and can just flawless guard everything, it doesn't really help you much against zoning. So if you're playing a character who has to get in and the opponent's just throwing projectiles all day, your flawless guard isn't really going to help you in that scenario. Now thankfully I have seen a lot of characters have a counter move that actually absorbs the projectile and then punishes the person who threw it for a pretty good amount of damage. I've seen Garrus do this, I've seen Scarlet do this, and a few other characters who can punish you from full screen if you throw a projectile at them. So there definitely are options to beat zoning, but some characters don't have any of those options, nor do they have an armored option. So perhaps one of the best ways to go about fixing this would to make flawless guard not cost so much meter, and possibly even no meter at all. Because games like Third Strike didn't require meter to parry the opponent and then respond, and those games were still fairly balanced overall, at least in terms of overall defense and the parry system in general. And perhaps the zoning won't be a problem if every character has some sort of counter attack that beats projectiles. If every character has at least one move that does that, then the projectiles wouldn't be an issue, and neither would not having armored attacks on the special moves. And the next big issue people are talking about is combo limitation, because the combos in Mortal Kombat 11 don't seem as creative as before. Not to mention the universal meter burn option is gone and it's now different for each character. So in other words, when you land a special move in Mortal Kombat 11, you can't just press the block button to enhance it like in Injustice or MKX or MK9. Instead, you have to actually do a unique input for that character. So for example, Scorpion's Chain, if you land it, you press 2 on the controller, and that would extend the combo. And it was the same for every other character as well. They had a special move that could be enhanced with a unique option. And for many people, I imagine that's a bit confusing. They had a tough time extending combos naturally. I think it could end up being a good thing in the long run, since it requires you to spend more time with that character in training mode and just learn their different extensions, and it might make you feel a bit more involved and more committed to that character. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind if the universal enhancement option came back either. I think it makes the game a lot more simple and a lot easier to understand, not in the competitive sense, but just in the sense that it's a lot easier to pick up a character and play them and have a good time. However, I did want to address the concern that combos are just way too simple in Mortal Kombat 11. I think people are just watching the wrong players. Like if you're watching me, for example, I don't have the crazy combos figured out yet, so if you watched my video, you might think, well, the combos just aren't there. However, if you watch PND KNM, which is Ketchup and Mustard's channel, you'll see some pretty creative combos already. Just with like the first couple hours they had to play the game, they were spending both bars for one combo and doing a pretty good amount of damage, and on top of that they were also using the crushing blow mechanic to extend combos without spending meter. And since the meter system refills on its own, you actually have more chances to do combos than ever before. So I honestly do think that combos are there in Mortal Kombat 11, we just haven't seen enough people do it yet. And then one more big concern is the roster, and this one actually has me pretty concerned as well. If you watch one of my recent videos, then you know that half the roster has already been revealed or leaked. And boy howdy, we're missing a lot of returning fan favorite characters. It's got a lot of people nervous, a lot of people concerned. It seems like Reptile might not be in, it seems like Cyrax might not be in, Ermac hasn't been confirmed or leaked in the slightest, and even my girl Melina might not make it in, and that just breaks my heart. Now luckily I still have Scarlet, so I should be grateful for the things I do have. Some people don't have any of their favorite characters coming back, at least I have Scarlet, and I guess I could be content with that, but man, I can't even imagine a game without Melina in it. I can't imagine a Mortal Kombat game without Melina in it. And honestly, before the big Mortal Kombat 11 reveal, there are characters who I thought for sure were going to come in. I thought they were just a shoo-in to be on this roster. Characters like Jade, I thought for sure. Characters like Frost, I thought for sure. And now that over half the roster has already been confirmed, I'm like, man, I don't know if any of these characters are going to be in for sure because we still have so many fan favorites that haven't come back. And let's admit it, even though I do love Frost, she's not exactly a fan popular character. Same could also be said for Jade. I love Jade, but she's not super popular, especially in terms of people that play her. And I think a lot of other players feel the exact same way. They're just crossing their fingers and praying their character makes it in. Although I do want to state I don't think the roster is very small. I think between 25 and 30 characters is very standard for most fighting games, and then typically you have DLC after that. And I know to a lot of people more characters sounds like it's always better, but in my experience the opposite is actually true. Once you start adding too many characters, I find they feel less and less unique. They start to kind of blur into each other with only a few subtle differences here and there. Whereas if your roster is a bit smaller, they're all going to feel a bit more unique. Not to mention they're going to have a lot more tools, right? The variation system, as we've seen, has so many special moves that you can mix and match. And if the game had 35 characters instead, you wouldn't have all those special moves, which means your characters would be a lot more limited and you wouldn't get to personalize them nearly as much. So I don't think the roster is actually small per se. I think it's actually a pretty healthy size. I think people are just freaked out because we've seen some new characters revealed and not the standard characters that we're used to seeing. And then our brains are starting to race because we're thinking, man, a Mortal Kombat game without Ermac, Reptile, Jade, Melina, that just sounds nuts. But who knows, perhaps all those characters will still end up in the game. Some have theorized the roster is actually bigger and they're just showing a smaller roster for now. I don't think that's the case, but at this point anything is possible. I think all we can do for now is just cross our fingers and pray, or some sort of weird cross-finger pray, and hope that that's enough to get our characters in the game. Seriously, NetherRealm, please put my girl Melina in the game. I don't care if she's DLC, I just want her playable. Please, NRS Elder Gods. Ed Boon, I beseech thee. And last but not least, we have one of the biggest fears of all within the community, and that's the zoning. People are afraid this game is going to turn into Injustice 2, where characters are at full screen just throwing projectiles over and over again and constantly trying to outzone each other. And that's a fair concern, all things considered, because I think that killed the hype for Injustice 2 a lot sooner than it should have. Because Injustice 2 had so many hype characters like Bane and other rushdown characters of that nature, but they just got beaten by Deadshot players over and over again. Or any other character who had great keep away skills, they would just dominate the tournament scene, and you'd see nothing but keep away the entire time, and it was very boring, and I think it killed the game a lot sooner than it should have. And with that fear in mind, people have been watching Mortal Kombat 11 footage and noticed people at full screen throwing projectiles at each other, and that fear is just kind of bubbling back up to the surface, because characters like Scarlet and Raiden are very good at zoning, and even characters like Garrus or Sonya can be good at zoning in certain variations. In fact, I even saw Baraka players who could zone fairly well with his projectiles as long as they enhanced it. It was almost impossible to even jump over it. However, like I said in past videos, we were only able to play a select few characters, and it could be that we played the only zoners that are actually on the roster. Perhaps everybody else who gets revealed will be a rushdown character of some kind, or at least a very aggressive character. In other words, Raiden and Scarlet are the only real zoners in the game, and everyone else likes to be in your face. That could certainly be the case. Not to mention, the meter system does help alleviate the zoning a little bit in Mortal Kombat 11, because even if you are just blocking the whole time and slowly walking in on the zoner, you are building meter, because the meter is not based on you doing an attack. Whereas in Injustice 2, the person zoning was the only one building meter, because you built meter by doing attacks, whereas the other guy was stuck blocking all day and didn't have any meter to use. And thankfully in MK11 that's not the case, because you build meter no matter what. So eventually you will have a bar to help you out with that situation. Not to mention many characters have teleports in Mortal Kombat 11, so they can get around zoning just fine even without any meter. Plus, if we do end up getting armor moves back, I think that'll help a lot with the zoning as well, since you can just armor through the projectile and hit the opponent, or at least knock them down. Alright everyone, that about covers it for all the main concerns that I saw on YouTube and within the Mortal Kombat 11 community as a whole. But please let me know your concerns in the comments down below, especially if I didn't cover it in this video. Please keep in mind this game is still in a very early build, so any number of things could change between now and the game's release. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like down below. It really does help my channel out a ton, and then why not keep that combo going by subscribing and ringing that bell. That way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.